Here she is, the new pattern, the Compton. So let's talk about her. First of all, this is the one we're making in the video today. This is a vinyl, a faux leather. It's pretty pliable. I'd probably consider it a faux leather that I sell on my website. It's a wavy leopard. I have it in this brown color. I have it in this blue color. I have a black and white, which is absolutely gorgeous. And then I think I have a little bit of red and black left as well. So just to kind of let you know ahead of time, you can get it there. All of my lining is linen in all of the bags. And of course, you all know you can get the lining from me as well. This one is kind of the blue-gray linen. This one here, I have a natural color linen. So the Compton is a very thin bag. She has kind of a feminine shape to her. And looking at it, you wouldn't think that the bag holds that much. But let me tell you, she's huge. When you open up the bag, you see that she opens nice and wide. And inside you have a whole section here that you can put things in. Now, on this side also, I have a slip pocket, a double slip pocket for your cell phone or whatnot. On the other large side, I have a zipper pocket and another slip pocket. So you've got big sections here to put stuff in. Then in addition, you also have a zipper section. And this zipper section also opens really wide. So in here, we have a key fob, we have a sunglasses pocket, which is gusseted, so you can fit your sunglasses in there without smushing them down. On this side, I have a slip pocket with a little pen pocket. Now, this bag is finished with binding, but it's just a little bit of binding. It's not much. The binding basically runs, if you can see in here, it's black, and it runs basically from here around to this side on both the front and the back, okay? So you can see there's two bindings in there, and they start right about here on each side, right about where the zipper begins, and it goes all the way around. So it's not a lot of binding. I will say that this is not a beginner bag. This is an intermediate to an advanced bag, and I don't think that you need to be afraid of it though, okay? I think that this video tutorial is going to help tremendously with it. I also think that you can use, if you have a domestic machine, you can also make this bag, but I would not use a faux leather or a vinyl. I would stick with a cotton canvas for the exterior, probably maybe a cork or a vinyl for the actual gusset. And then on the lining, I would make sure you keep the interfacing out of your seam allowances as well. So the hardware is minimal. You have two snaps, two magnetic snaps. You obviously have some rivets holding on the handles. You have zippers, right? You have one zipper here, and then you have an interior zipper pocket. And then if you want a key fob, you have a 1/2 inch swivel clip for a key fob. So the bag itself has very minimal hardware. It also has very minimal stabilizer. You have some Decoville Heavy in the gusset, and you have a little bit of Decoville Light in the upper lining sections. And that's it. No other stabilizer at all. If you're using canvas, cotton canvas, or any kind of cotton linen for your lining, you obviously want to use interfacing on that. So this is a excellent bag. I think that, let me just say, the person that kind of inspired me to design it has had her bag now for a few days, well, probably about a week. And she said that everywhere she goes, people are already asking her, where can I buy that bag? Where can I buy that bag? She says she has people lined up wanting the bag. So I think this is a fantastic make. So let's go ahead and get started on the tutorial. Okay, let's start by going over parts and preparation. So the first thing you have is the exterior of the bag. You're going to have 2 of these pieces. They're going to be exactly the same, and you don't want to put any kind of stabilizer on this at all. If you're using a cotton canvas, you're going to interface it, but if you're using a faux leather or vinyl, do not put any stabilizer on it. We also have our gusset, and in my example, in my bag, I have the gusset being a contrasting color. You do want to put some Decoville Heavy or Peltex, something like that, on the gusset. And you see that the gusset is tapered here. That's important. You also have a lining gusset piece, and you are going to put some interfacing on the lining gusset. Now, if you have a domestic machine you're going to be sewing on, you might want to think about keeping all of the interfacing out of your seam allowances, because it does get a little bit thick at the end. My testers felt that it might be beneficial if you don't have an industrial machine to do that. If you have an industrial machine, you'll be all right. So we have our upper lining 1 piece. We have 2 of these. And when you put your stabilizer on the back, you're going to see here that it does not go all the way to the ends. So you're going to want to fold this in half, make notches, or mark it with a fabric pen so that you know exactly where the halfway mark is. And you want to do the same thing for your stabilizer. And then when you put it on, just center your stabilizer right on your piece. So this is upper lining 1 pieces. We have an upper lining 2 piece, and it's shaped like this. Again, we have 2 of them. You're going to use some Decoville Light on the back, and you are going to just center that on the piece. You're also going to have 2 tab pieces. There's no stabilizer or anything like that on these pieces here. You're going to have handle pieces, of course. So I have my 2 handle pieces in a contrasting fabric. I also have some, this is for your interior slip pockets. I have some accent pieces. I did some in the contrast and some in the main fabric. So you're going to have 4 of those. I'm going to also put a key fob in here, and that's optional, however you want to do that. But I do have my key fob piece here. Again, no stabilizer or anything. And if you're putting a key fob in, you're going to need a 1/2 inch swivel clip. I also have a zipper overlay. And what you're going to do is measure, as I tell you in the pattern, and you're just going to cut out the center of the zipper overlay. And that's for the interior zipper pocket. You have your lining piece 1, and it is shaped like this. You've got 2 of these, and I used some woven fuse 2 on the back, which is an interfacing. So this is what piece 1, lining piece 1 is shaped like. Lining piece 2 is just a rectangle. So you have 2 of those. Lining piece 3 has got a curve at the top. So you have 2 of those as well. So you have lining piece 1, 2, and 3. They're all shaped a little bit different. You're going to put some woven interfacing on the back if you're not using a waterproof canvas. Then we have all of our pockets. So for your zipper pocket, you're going to, of course, have 2 pieces. You're going to have a slip pocket. One's going to be a little bit larger than the others. So that's this piece here. And then I also have 2 pieces for other slip pockets. I give you all these measurements in the pattern. And then we're going to have a sunglasses pocket. And when you cut your sunglasses pocket, you're going to cut a piece of interfacing, basically half the size. I give you all the measurements. And then along one short edge, you're going to fuse it. And essentially what we're going to do is fold this in half. We just need interfacing on one part of this though, because this is going to be pleated. We don't want it too thick. So make sure that you cut your interfacing appropriately for this piece. You're going to need a number 5 zipper, and this needs to be cut to an exact measurement that I give you in the pattern. You're going to need an interior zipper for your interior zipper pocket. You're going to, of course, need your zipper pulls, and then you need 2 magnetic snaps. Now, I suggest you do something decorative to the ends of your straps here because they're showing on the front, and so I just curved mine. I suggest that you go ahead and invest in a punch like this. I have a lot of my patterns that use this punch, and I just got mine from Tandy Leather. This is a 1-inch punch, and I use it for 1-inch, and actually sometimes I use it for 3/4 inch straps as well. And it just makes it really easy. You're not having to freehand it. You just basically put this onto the handle, hit it, and you get a nice curved edge. I did buy some on Amazon one time, and the first time I hit it, it bent. So I suggest you go ahead and invest in a good punch, and it'll last forever. And then lastly, we're going to need is some binding. Now, you can make your own binding. I'm going to use this double fold bias binding that I buy on Amazon. I'll link it below. I suggest using black binding. And the reason why is because, you know, sometimes you have to go back over a little piece because maybe you didn't catch it on the front and the back. And if you use black and black thread, you can't ever see that. It is just kind of like what I call my secret weapon is black binding. And so in my, as you saw, my actual lining is not black, but I'm still going to use black binding, and it kind of frames it as well. So I suggest black binding. So we're going to go through this step by step. Let's get going. Okay, the pattern is broken down into steps. So we're going to go through this according to the pattern instructions and follow the steps exactly the same way. So we start off with the handles. So I'm just going to draw a line down the center of my handle. And then we're going to put some double-sided tape on this and punch our ends. So I'm using a Soline air erase pen. Since this is on the back of the handles, you could almost use anything. Sometimes I use a ballpoint pen or a Sharpie. Okay, I'm going to take some 1/4 inch double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it just right on either side of this line. I'm not going to actually put it against the line. I'm going to leave, about 1/4 inch. Okay, because I'm going to actually use a punch to punch the ends, I want to make sure my ends stay nice and tight to each other. I don't want to have any gaps. And so in order to do that, I actually put some double-sided tape on the edges as well. So I'm going to just put some here. And this just helps those ends stay down so that when you punch, it doesn't move. Put it on this side as well. Now, of course, these handles can be made any length. This is made to go over the shoulder with this length. But if you don't want it quite that long, you could certainly make it more of a wrist style bag where you just hold it with your hand or your wrist. Or, of course, you can always make it longer as well. So you get to choose. That's your bag. Okay, peel the side off one of these pieces. And the key to getting straps that don't twist is to come straight up. You could do a couple things. Sometimes I even, and I have given this tip before, but let's talk about it again. I will fold these in half. And you can fold them in half as many times as you need and make little notches. And then when you fold this up, make sure your notches meet. So you can make marks all along here, make little notches so that your notches meet, and then you know your handle isn't twisted at all. A lot of times handle twisting starts at the table, not when you sew. So I'm going to pull this edge off. I'm going to make sure my edges are aligned here at the end. And then what I'm not going to do is push my fabric down and over. I'm just going to kind of pat it down. Because when I do that, if I was to take this and push it down, basically I'm pulling it as I do that. I'm kind of pushing it out of proportion, and that certainly can lead to twisting handles. So let's take this, make sure your edges match here. And I'm not putting my long edge directly on the line. I'm putting it just shy of the line. The reason why is because when we fold this handle again, we want to give the handle room to actually fold. And if these two edges meet exactly, you're not going to have that room. If you leave just a little bit of space, it's going to fold a lot nicer. So here I'm going to match my notches in the middle. And I'm going to leave just a little bit of space. I'm not pulling, I'm just very carefully making sure that these edges are good and sealed down here. Okay, so if you see here in the middle, I'm going to show this to you. You're going to see that my notches meet. And you can see there's a little bit of space there where the two edges don't match exactly. When I go to fold this, it's going to give it a little room to fold properly. So another little thing I want to do here is take some double-sided tape one more time, just a little bit, and put it on the edge, because again, I want these edges to be nice and flat with no gaps. So when I go to punch, I don't have any problems. So go ahead and fold this in half and clip it. And then when you get to the edge, just pull that double-sided tape off, or the back off, not the tape. There we go. And so now I'm going to take these edges and make sure they're aligned perfectly and fold them in half. And that tape will help that stay down. So now you'll see here, there's no gaps there. If you don't put tape, you'd have little gaps. And then when you go to punch, maybe your punch might get off a little bit because of those gaps. So that just kind of helps it all stay a little bit tighter. So let's take the tape off here. Keep the backing off the tape rather. Okay, before I sew, I'm going to go ahead and cut my edges. So I have a station over here where I actually cut these, and what I'm going to do is take my punch and I'm going to set it directly on this edge, just like this. And I'm going to hit it with my mallet, and it's going to cut a nice curved edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the handle folded, the other handle folded, punch my edges, and then we'll come back and sew this. Okay, my ends have been punched, and you can see because I have this double-sided tape on there, this is nice and even. There's no gaps. So we're going to go ahead and sew this. Now, whenever I sew straps, I always use a edge guide. I just think that it helps. And if you ever watch a video of some of the bags being made, some of the really high-end bags, they do the same thing. So I'm going to figure out exactly where I want this to be here. And then the other thing I'm going to do is not backstitch. I'm just going to hold my threads, go forward, turn my machine on, And then when I get to the edge, I'm just going to hand crank to make sure that I get a nice stitch around these curves. Okay, stitch on down. I'm going to pull my threads through to the back here, stitch down, and make sure I end in the same hole I started. Then I'm going to pull the thread through to the back here. I'm going to tie it off, and then I'm just going to use a lighter to burn the edges to make sure it stays. Now when I put this handle against the bag, I'm going to make sure that this is the edge that goes against the bag so you don't see it on the front. And you're going to have a seamless stitch. Okay, so I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight. And I'm going to take my lighter and just put a little heat on this. Okay, and then from the front, you've got a perfectly stitched handle. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other handle. And then I'm going to put some actual edge coat base on these two short edges. And once that dries, in between steps, I'll also add some color so that the very edges are nice and finished on this bag. I have a great video on edge coating. I'll make sure I link that below for you. Okay, I put my first coat of base coat on those ends of the handles, so we're going to wait for those to dry, and we're going to start on step 2, which is the exterior construction. So I have here my 2 exterior pieces, my 2 lining 1 pieces, and my 2 lining 1 upper pieces. Before we start with this step, you want to take your pattern piece and lay it on top of the upper lining. This is the upper lining 1 pattern piece, and you have marks on here for your handle rivets and also for your snap placement. So go ahead and mark these with some kind of fabric pen. I'm using a silver marking pen here, and I get these from any kind of leather supply store. You can do Tandy, Springfield Leather, any of those. And then I just make sure I can see all my marks really well. And you want to do the same thing on the other piece and make sure you can see the marks really well. So let's go ahead and take one of the upper lining and one of the lining pieces and put everything else aside for just a minute. And I want to find the center of my lining. So you can either cut a notch or put a little mark with a fabric pen, whatever works best for you. I'm going to mark the top and the bottom. Okay, from here, you might want to lay this out just to make sure you attach the right side. This is going to be the longer concave edge. So the edge that kind of actually curves upwards. Well, I guess they both curve upward, but the one that's a little bit longer. So you're going to just kind of make sure you've got the right edge, okay? Match it up and then flip this over. And you're going to see when you do that, these two edges kind of poke out. And that's okay. Okay, so see how we are here? They're poking out. Go ahead and match the edge up first. And when I do this, I'm going to put a clip not only on the edge we're going to sew, but also on this other edge to hold that in place. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then we are just going to kind of ease the rest of this in. So, and it will work. Just kind of work with it a little bit and clip. And you see that it'll fall right into place. Okay, you'll know you did it right when you see that this doesn't lay flat. It's not supposed to. So from here, we're just going to go ahead and stitch this. And on this part, we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, the seam allowance varies throughout the pattern, and I make sure in each step to let you know exactly what the seam allowance is going to be. So if I don't mention it here in the video, go ahead and check out the pattern, and it's in there. But this here is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, the main thing you want to make sure of is you do not sew on top of your stabilizer. You always want to sew next to the stabilizer. So from here you want to, because you have a curved edge, you're going to want to put little clips in your seam allowance. Don't clip the stitches, but clip to the stitches. And just put the clips about every 1/2 inch or so. Okay. So from here you're going to leave the seam allowance pointing up towards the upper lining, and you're just going to go ahead and fold this over. Kind of finger press it down, and then we're going to top stitch on the upper lining. And when you do that, you're going to catch the seam allowance. Now, whenever you top stitch in this pattern, you're going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And there we have this part done. Now that we have this piece done, before we move on, we want to go ahead and attach our magnetic snaps. So just make sure you attach, it doesn't matter which one goes where, you just want to make sure you attach your male ends on the same side and your female ends on the same side. I'm going to look at my snap placement marks here, place this little hole on here accordingly, make the marks to cut. I'm going to use my Zoid craft knife, again, one of my favorite things. I sell it on my website, and just make little slits here. Now, even though I have some stabilizer on the back of this upper lining piece, I'm going to add another piece, and I'm going to add some Decaville Heavy. So whenever I have extra pieces of Decaville Heavy or Light, I always save them. See what I mean here in just a second, and use them as backings on rivets and magnetic snaps and anything else that I think might need a little extra stabilization. So here's an example of a couple. I already have the slits in these, and I'm just going to put this right on top just to give it a little extra help. You can never have too much. You put your backings on, and then you're going to bend these down. Now I like to use a hammer and just get these down really tight so there's no chance of them coming off. So I'm going to go do that, and then we will come back and put the exterior on. Now that I have the magnetic snaps attached, I'm going to take my main piece here, and I'm just going to stick this on top, and we're going to clip this right sides together. And we're actually just going to sew the top part first. So I'm going to throw a few clips all the way around. But actually what we're going to do is just sew across this top part here using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now we're going to take our sharp scissors again, and because this is a curved edge, we're going to have to clip. So you want to clip to, but not through your stitching. And if you happen to clip your stitching, just go back and stitch it again. No problem. Now the other thing I'm going to do is on the seam here, this seam going across, I've got a little bit of bulk here, and this is just from the seam being turned up. When we turn the seam allowance up, I'm just going to clip that off. So any kind of extra, you can see here I have a little bit of extra seam allowance right here. I'm just going to clip that right off. Okay? So once I do that, we're going to turn this and make sure that this top is nice and smooth. So I'm just going to kind of roll my finger along the top edge, make sure the other edges line up okay. Throw a clip on here and just kind of roll these edges out. And what I want to try to make sure is that the actual seam is at the very top here. You may have to stick your hand in here and just kind of push it. Push it up. And then you also want to clip around the rest of the bag. Okay, from here, we're going to top stitch across this top part, And then we're going to go ahead and baste these other 3 sides closed. Okay, so we have the exterior, one of the exterior pieces done. And I'm going to just repeat this process for the other exterior piece. Okay, so we have our 2 exterior pieces completed. We're going to set these aside and we're going to move on to the gusset. So for the gusset, you're going to need your zipper, and I give you the exact measurement that you need to cut it in the pattern. You need your 2 tab pieces, and then you need your gusset main piece and your gusset lining piece. So the first thing we're going to do is work on these tabs. Draw a line down the center of each one, which I've done already, and then you're going to put double-sided tape on the back. We're going to fold the long edges into the center, and then we're going to stitch down each end, kind of like a handle. I'm using 1/2 inch double-sided tape there. I'm just going to peel these off. And in this case, you want the long edges to meet in the center, unlike the handles where you left a space. You're going to have those edges meet. You can set on each edge. I'm just going to top stitch. And then you're just going to take the tab and fold it in half, wrong sides together, and we're just going to stitch them closed at the very edge here. From here, you want to take your zipper, make sure you put your zipper pull on, and place one of the tabs right on top of the zipper teeth. So the right side of the zipper, you're going to put the tab right on there. And we're just going to baste it on. We're going to do the same thing with the other side. Just center it right on your zipper teeth. Baste that in place. From here, you're going to take your gusset, your right side of your gusset, and put it against the tab. And the gusset itself, the short edge, is the same width as your zipper. Then you're going to take your lining and you're going to put it on the wrong side of your zipper. So you're forming a sandwich with your zipper in the middle. I'm going to put a couple clips on this. And then we're going to stitch this. And you're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So we have our, and you can probably see it better from the lining. Go ahead and open this up. Put your gusset pieces wrong sides together, and now top stitch here. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you have any kind of walking foot machine, this is where your vinyl is going to get eaten up if you're using a vinyl or a faux leather. So make sure you protect it. So I'm going to grab my little leather piece. I'm just going to stick that on there so it doesn't eat up my project. And there we are, top stitch. So essentially your zipper is acting as part of your gusset here. So take the other side of your zipper with the tab attached, and you're going to put it on the right side of your gusset. And you're going to take the lining piece and you're going to flip it around so that the right side of your lining is against the wrong side of your zipper. So we're doing exactly the same thing, just on the other side. And you're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. From here, flip your gusset so that the wrong side of the lining is against the wrong side of the gusset piece. Now, before you top stitch the second side, I suggest that you go ahead and we're going to baste this closed. Okay, we're actually going to baste the gusset closed. So I'm going to clip the gusset. And I'm actually going to start from where I top stitched before, because as you see, when you flip this around, so all I'm going to do is kind of flip it inside out. You've got a little bit of, the way the fabrics come together, they don't necessarily lay flat. So if you top stitch this side before you stitch this gusset together, before you baste it, you're going to get a little bit of a bubble here, a little extra. So start on this side where you actually top stitched first, and let's go ahead and baste one side closed. Then we're going to top stitch across where this other tab is, and then we're going to baste down the other side. And I'm actually, instead of trying to start right at the stitches, I don't want my foot to eat this up, so I'm just going to start a little further down, and that's okay. You don't have to worry about it being perfect. This is just a basting stitch. And whenever you baste, you're basting at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so now I'm going to turn, and we're going to top stitch across, and I'm going to have my leather piece ready so I don't eat my project up. I'm going to turn and protect it just for another few stitches here. Okay, so now when you flip this around, you've got it nice and flat. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center. Now, you see I have a seam here in the middle of my lining, and it's only because I did not have enough fabric to do a solid gusset like the pattern called for, so I had to piece it. So just, you know, if you ever run into that, you can certainly do that. It is not a problem to just make it work out. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm just going to clip my centers. Okay, so now my gusset is complete. We're going to set it aside, and we're going to move on to pockets. So for pockets, we have essentially 4 different slip pockets. This is our sunglasses pocket. So I'm going to fold so that it is right sides together. Clip. Okay, and then I'm going to take the long slip pocket, and I'm going to fold it in half right sides together. So it's the long sides. You've got a long side and you've got a shorter side. You're going to take the 2 short sides to meet. Okay, and then we have 2 other slip pockets, and we have our zipper pockets. So on these other slip pockets, they are actually squares, so no matter how you fold it, you're going to get the same dimension. So just go ahead and fold it in half, right sides together. Clip that. Now, the greatest thing about this pattern is that you can configure these pockets any way you want. So the pattern has the sunglasses pocket on the inside, and I think one of the zipper pocket, the zipper pocket on the outside with the slip pocket. I mean, it's got a specific configuration. You don't have to do it that way. You can do it however you want. So as we go through this, I think this time I'm going to put my sunglasses pocket on the outside of the bag, and you'll see what I mean by that. And we're just going to switch it up. And so make sure that as you make this pattern and as you make this bag, you think about how you want your pockets and do it how you want. It doesn't have to be exactly as the pattern says. So we're going to stitch these closed on the side. doing here is chain stitching these. Makes it a little bit quicker so you're not having to cut your threads in between. Now to get a nice clean corner, we're just going to fold the edge along the stitch line. We're going to put our thumb in here and we're going to hold that down with our thumb and our finger, and then we're just going to turn and pop it out. I do like to take my turning tool, and a lot of you have this. I do sell it on my website. It's another one of my favorite things, and I'm just going to kind of poke that out. And look at how beautiful that corner is without having to clip anything. So again, you just fold it on the stitch line, stick your thumb in there and hold it with your finger, and then just turn and pop it out. Sometimes you don't even need to use your tool, but I like to just kind of poke it out, make sure it looks good. And I am going to take this over to the iron, and I am going to iron this down, all of these pockets. One thing that I think is really important is that you take the time to iron your project. Even if it's a vinyl, when you're done turning it, if it looks wrinkly, heat up your ironing board, use a Teflon sheet, do something to try to put a little heat to it to get the wrinkles out, because it's definitely going to make a difference between your project looking handmade and homemade. Right? There's a big difference between the two. So all these pockets are going to turn beautifully. The great thing about this tool is that you have a tiny little ball on one side and a bigger ball on the other side. So you don't have any kind of pointed edges that will poke through. This is just a fabulous tool. I love it. So I will also tell you that I don't ever try to sell you anything that I don't believe in 100% and that I don't use. So when I talk about my favorite things, they are things that I'm using in my workroom and that I personally love myself. Sometimes I try something thinking, I think I'm going to love this, and I don't like it. So therefore, I'm not going to try to sell it to y'all. I mostly carry these items just to help y'all get some of the better tools in your workroom to make a better product. All right, so I'm going to take these pockets over to the iron, get them nice and pressed up, and then we will move on to the next step. Okay, all of my pockets are pressed. I'm going to do just a very thin 1/8 of an inch basting stitch across the top of these pockets to close them. They are raw edges right now. That's okay. But I just want to make sure that when I put the accent piece on, I don't get a bubbling effect. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch these closed. So now we are going to add our accent pieces onto these. So take your accent pieces. Mine happen to be a mixture of my accent and my main because I didn't quite have enough of my main. And you can draw a line down the center if it helps you place it. So let me show you what I mean. Just going to take one of these And with a fabric pen, go ahead and draw a line right down the center. I want to use either 1/8 or 1/4 inch double-sided tape here. I'm going to put a little piece on each side. Okay, I'm going to do this for all the accent pieces, but for right now, let me just show you this one. So peel the backing off of one side of the tape. And then take one of your pocket pieces, it doesn't matter which one, and you want to put the top of the pocket just below the line. So I'm just going to line this up just below that line. So for instance, see, you can see where my line is, and the pocket is just below that. The reason why is because as you fold this over, you want to allow that fabric some room, and it's going to fold around this pocket. It's going to need that extra room. So I'm going to take the other side, take the backing off the tape, and just fold this over. And fold it tight against the top of the pocket. Okay. I'm going to top stitch and back stitch on each edge. Now, when you top stitch this, you can either use a 1/4 or an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, whichever you prefer. From here, I'm just going to cut these little edges off so that it's nice and flush with the pocket. Cut any extra little threads here. And then I have a nice pocket with an accent on it. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this for the other 3 pockets, and that is the 2 that were the square pockets, and then also the sunglasses pocket. Do that, and then we'll move on. Okay, so I have all 4 of my slip pockets done now. So we're going to take our sunglasses pocket. We have a little bit more work to do with it. You want to go ahead and fold it. Now, if you have an obvious right and wrong side to your fabric, you're going to fold it wrong sides together. Because I'm using this linen, I don't. So I'm just going to fold it in one direction here. And I'm just going to put a little clip on it. And I want to measure 1 inch in from this folded edge, 1 inch in, and we're going to draw a line up 1 inch. So 1 inch in, 1 inch up. I'm just going to draw a line with my sew line. And so this is what I have here, just a little 1 inch line. I'm going to stitch on that line. So I'm going to start at the bottom, I'm going to come up, I'm going to make sure I back stitch really good at the beginning and end of this 1 inch stitch. So from there, you just want to take this pleat, which is basically what we did, is just make a pleat. Take the center of the pleat and lay it flat down on that seam, on that bottom seam. And just put a clip. So now we have a little gusseted or pleated pocket. Okay, so there's your little stitch. Don't stitch it down. Just go ahead and put a clip on it. And when we stitch the pocket to the lining is when we're going to go ahead and stitch this down. Before we move on, let's do our key fob. I'm going to take some double-sided tape, put it along one of these long edges. And we're going to fold this in half and stitch it. Now we are going to have a raw edge here, so if you want to edge coat this, you certainly can. I edge coat a lot in my bags. I usually don't worry too much about the key fob because it's inside, and I don't necessarily know that it's necessary. If it's something really obvious, I will. But not always. So this tape is just holding this closed. If you prefer not to use tape, you could certainly use some clips here. So we're going to stitch it, and we want to stitch it 1/4 of an inch from this raw edge. From here, you're going to want to take this to your cutting table, and using a rotary cutter and a ruler, trim off this 1/4 inch seam allowance down to 1/8 of an inch, and it's going to give you a nice clean edge. And then again, at that point, you can go ahead and edge coat it if you'd like to do that. If you haven't put another coat of edge coat on your handles yet, go ahead and do that at the same time that you do this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down, and we'll move on. Okay, once it's cut down, go ahead and put your swivel clip on, and I usually just put a rivet to keep it on. There's not going to be a lot of force on this. You could sew it instead if you'd like. This is just to hold the keys. So you're good to go. So let's put that aside. All right, grab your zipper and your 2 zipper pockets. You want to go ahead and put the wrong side of your zipper against one of the right sides of your pockets. We're going to clip this in place, and then we're going to sew it on just using about an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, whichever is easiest for you. Now you want to take the zipper and flip it up and flip the seam allowance flat. Okay, so the zipper is straight on this wrong side, and you're going to just top stitch this seam allowance down to the pocket. So now we see the wrong side of the pocket, the right side of the zipper, and the right side of the pocket, the wrong side of the zipper. So take the other side of the zipper, the wrong side, and lay it against the right side of your pocket. So your pocket pieces are right sides together. We're going to clip this on, and we're going to sew it, and then top stitch it just like we did the other side. Flip that seam allowance. Just going to kind of finger press it down and then top stitch it. You want to make sure you add your zipper pull, don't forget that. And then we're going to use some 1/4 inch double-sided tape. You could use 1/8 if you want. We're going to put that on here. And I typically put it right along the edge of the zipper tape. Both the top and the bottom. Now this is ready to go. Okay, let's think about these pockets. I'm going to start with the the lining 2 pockets. So that's the rectangle pieces. Let's place a notch in the center or mark it with a pen. Go ahead and do that on both pieces. And I think I'm going to put my sunglasses pocket on this one and my zipper pocket with another slip pocket. So on the bag, the slip pocket 2 is this outer slip pocket here, okay? So this one right here. So not inside this zipper part, but on the outside. And you notice I didn't put any pockets on this outside piece, and the reason why is because I didn't want it to sag. The way it's designed, I was afraid that if you have too much in this pocket that was attached or on the other side of this exterior piece, it wouldn't look, it kind of distort the bag, I guess is a good way to say it. So, so in this example, I did a slip pocket on this side, and on this side, I did my zipper pocket with a slip pocket. I'm just gonna do it a little different this time. Like I said, I'm gonna put my sunglasses and probably the zipper pocket. Okay, so we have these pieces marked. I'm gonna take one of them. Let's put our zipper pocket here. So I'm gonna put some double-sided tape on this to hold it in place while we sew. And if you don't want this many pockets, you don't have to add them. Right? That's the best thing about sewing, is we get to do whatever we want. Let's peel the backing off the tape. You're going to center it 1 inch down from the lining 2 piece. From there, I'm going to take one of the smaller slip pocket pieces and I'm going to center it 1/2 inch down from the zipper overlay. Now you can do this in 2 separate steps if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and sew both of these at the same time. I like to use pins here. Pull this down. And I think I'm going to split this pocket. Let's see. I think I'm just going to split it in half. So, measure over. Draw a line with my Air Erase Sew Line pen, one of my favorite things. So as I stitch this, I'm going to stitch around the outer edge of my zipper overlay, and then I'm going to stitch down my pocket, across, up, back down, across, and up here. Now when I stitch this, I usually go all the way up to the very top of my accent piece. I'm going to turn, take 1 stitch, and then turn and come back down the other side. And that way I have a place to put a rivet. And then on my overlay, I did back stitch at these points in my pocket. I'm going to put some rivets on here as well to kind of just reinforce it, since pockets tend to be gotten into, getting out of several times. You know, you get in and out of them pretty regular. And these are stress points on the pockets. So I'll add those rivets in just a minute. We go around this and I'm going to make sure I pull my threads through and tie them off in the back. Make sure you stop in the same hole you started in. Tie these off. And then usually once I tie them off, I put a little piece of double-sided tape on top of the knot just to kind of hold it so it doesn't come apart. If you've ever tried to take something apart that has double-sided tape on it, you'll know that it's tough. Once this thing kind of adheres, it does not move. Okay. So take your scissors and just cut in the center of your zipper opening here. Make a little snip. And then we're going to cut all the way down. Put your scissor tip underneath your edge here. You don't want to cut your zipper overlay. And then come on in the back and just go ahead and cut these edges. Now all you're trying to do here is to make sure you don't see your lining from the front. It does not have to be pretty in the back, it just needs to be out of the way. Okay, so here we have the front. Now before I put my zipper in here, I want to go ahead and put my rivets in. I have accidentally put a hole in my pocket before, forgetting to move it out of the way. And then on the flip side, I've actually put my zipper pocket in and then went to go sew this pocket and sewed my zipper pocket closed. So that's the reason why I am trying to do these two at the same time and I don't end up sewing over something I shouldn't. So rivets are going to go in here and we'll go ahead and put our zipper pocket or our actual zipper in next. Okay, a couple things about rivets is whenever you put them on a lining piece like this, you always want to put some stabilizer in the back to just help reinforce it. Otherwise, your rivet might come through your lining. Okay. So let's go ahead and make sure, I like my zipper pulls going to the left, meaning closing to the left. I'm going to take this tape off and go ahead and center our zipper right inside this zipper opening. Okay, so now what we're going to do is stitch on the inside of this opening. We're going to do the same thing, pull our threads to the back and tie them off. You see I'm just moving my zipper pull out of the way as I go. Another thing is you want to make sure your pocket's open when you do this. So you see I have my pocket itself is open. I have not closed it yet. And then make sure you end in the same hole you started. From here, go ahead and fold the top piece, pocket piece down, and you're gonna have extra here. That's perfectly okay. We're just gonna trim that off. It should be about an inch, maybe a little bit more. And then we're gonna sew around the open 3 sides of this pocket. So turn your pocket so it's right, or your lining so it's right side up. Just pull the zipper aside just a little bit. You can just unstick that tape and then go ahead and start stitching. If you have any extra zipper or seam allowance here, you can trim that off. You want to burn the edges of your zipper if you haven't done that already. Just make sure they don't come undone, because zippers like to fray. Okay. So now we want to take our upper lining 2-piece, one of them, and we're going to put that right side down on the top. We're going to clip it on, and then we're going to stitch. We're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. Whatever you do, when you stitch like this, you don't ever want to stitch on top of your stabilizer, because then it's going to be difficult to turn. So if you see here, I always stitch next to. Leave your seam allowance pointing up towards your upper lining. Fold the upper lining up, and now we're going to top stitch right on top of the upper lining. And we're going to capture this seam allowance when we do. So here's one of our lining 2 pieces completed. So we're going to set it aside, grab the other lining 2 piece, and I think I'm going to put, like I said, my sunglasses pocket on here. So when you're putting your sunglasses pocket on, you're going to measure from the bottom. And the reason why is because this pocket tends to, and because it's gusseted or has a pleat in it, the sides aren't going to be exactly straight. They're going to angle out just a little bit. So you're going to measure 2 inches up from the bottom. I'm going to make just a little mark here with my pen. Well, I'm going to make it darker than that. I'm going to be able to see it. There we go. And I'm just going to line the center of this pocket right up with the center of that line. Use some good old-fashioned pins again. And what you want to do here is make sure that the bottom of this pocket is straight. So take your ruler and you want it to be 2 inches all the way across. So you may have to pull it up a little bit, and that's okay. Okay, so your edges are going to tend to want to angle out, and that's okay. You don't want to have them flat. You don't want to have them perfectly straight because that's going to be too much of a pocket here. You just want to kind of let them naturally do what they're going to do and flare out just a little bit. Pin them in place. And this is going to be a great pocket for our sunglasses. I'll be able to stick them in here, get them out easily. I'm just going to kind of look at this and make sure these sides look about the same. This side could come up just a little bit more. You can certainly measure. So from the edge, this side is about 3 3/4 of an inch. And this side is about the same. Okay, so from here, we're going to sew down the pocket, across, and back up. And as you sew across the bottom, you're going to go ahead and sew that pleat in place. Now I think I want my key fob on the outside here. So I'm going to just base this in place, just making sure that the end of the clip, or the clip is right about at the bottom of the bag. I don't necessarily want to have it hang off because then it's going to pool kind of at the bottom of the bag. I'm just going to make it even with the bottom of the bag. And I'm just going to base this in place. Now you could certainly put the key fob on the inside of your bag if you prefer, inside the zipper part. So now we want to get the other upper lining 2 piece, and we're going to clip it on the top here. And because our sunglasses pocket is poking out a little bit, we're going to have to make sure we clip this really good so that it stays in place. And we're going to stitch this on. I'm going to clip off anything extra from my key fob, and then with the seam allowance pointing up, I'm going to go ahead and top stitch this. and our second lining 2 piece is completed. So now we're going to take our lining 3 pieces. We do the same thing. We're going to find the center. We're going to attach these last 2 pockets on. Now, as you're measuring on these pieces, you're going to actually place your pockets 3 inches from the top because you're not putting any kind of upper lining on this piece. It stands as it is. So I'm going to take one of these pocket pieces. Down. Find the center of this piece. And I think with this pocket piece, I want to add a pen pocket. Just make sure it's centered. So I usually make my pen pockets about between 1.5 inches and 2 inches wide. Let's see. I'll make mine 2 inches wide this time. Maybe I want 2 pens in there. Okay, stitch this on the same way we did the others. Okay, and now have both pockets done, have my rivets set, and have the stabilizer on the back of where the rivets are. So all of our pocket pieces are done. It's now time to start putting it all together. So we're going to start with our gusset and our main exterior pieces. The first thing you want to do is on the exterior pieces, you're going to measure from each bottom edge, inside edge, 1/2 inch and make a mark. Now, your side edges are slanted here, so you want to slant your ruler and make the 1/2 inch mark there. And then 1/2 inch from the bottom. Same thing on the other side. So let me show you what this looks like. You have a little 1/2 inch box there. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side here, on this other piece. Now this is where the seam allowances start changing. So make sure you read the pattern. I mean, I'll tell you what they are as we go along. But we're going to be sewing kind of over the same seam a few times. And so you don't want to take the seam at the full seam allowance the first time around. All right, I'm going to set one of those aside. We're going to take our gusset. We've already marked the centers on our gusset, and we're going to put the exterior bottom right side together with the gusset. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew between our lines. You don't want to sew beyond the 1/2 inch mark. So you're not sewing from edge to edge. You're sewing from line to line. And we're sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Not the full 1/2 inch yet. It's going to be a 1/4 inch. So make sure your gusset's out of the way, and we're just going to start here. So don't start at where your box intersects each other. It's going to be a little bit lower than that. Now, one thing that I did not mention is I did not put purse feet on this bag. If you want purse feet, you would have done that, and it says in the pattern where to do it. You would have done that in the gusset step. Okay, so now you're going to clip right at your stitching. So you're clipping the gusset only, okay? And you're clipping it just beyond the stitching line. So I am going up about a 1/2 inch on the gusset. Okay, so let me show you. Here's your bag. You're going to pull this out of the way, and then you're going to clip your gusset a 1/2 inch. Okay, you're going to turn the gusset. So you're turning it so it's like this. Okay, so it was straight. You're going to use that actual clip to turn, and then you're going to align the side seam of the gusset with the side seam of the bag. And you're going to clip. Now your gusset is curved. So where the curve is, you're just going to curve your bag in to meet the gusset. Your gusset is going to end, and you're going to have your zipper. Your zipper is part of your gusset. So this part of the bag that extends beyond where your gusset ends is just going to get clipped to the zipper. So you're just going to make pretend the zipper is just like fabric, and you're going to clip it on. Move my pull more towards the center. Your side, your exterior of your bag should extend onto the zipper about 3 1/4 inches. And that's where I'm at, 3 1/4 inches. Okay, so this is what we have. So we're going to do the same thing with this other side. We've clipped it, so we're going to turn it, turn the gusset so that it matches up with the side seam. Clip it on, and then we're going to just take the exterior of the bag to meet the gusset, curve it in. And then clip the zipper to the exterior of the bag. And I'm just going to double check and make sure we are about right on our measurement here. And we are. Now, where the transition happens between the gusset and the zipper, okay, right here, make sure you clip that real good. we're going to stitch. We're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance up to the bag or through the gusset. Where the zipper, where you transition to the zipper, you're going to then switch from a 1/4 inch seam allowance to an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're going to baste your zipper onto your exterior at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you're starting out at a 1/4 inch, and as you approach this area right here, reduce your stitch, your seam allowance, to an 1/8 of an inch. Okay? So right in here, I'm going to pull this section up so my zipper lays nice and flat here. And I'm just going to make sure I catch my zipper. And then make sure you back stitch real good at the top here. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Only this time we're starting where the zipper is, so we're going to start with an 1/8 of an inch and then increase to a 1/4 of an inch when we transition onto the gusset. So here's where you're going to have to start to manhandle your bag a little bit. Don't be afraid to pull the zipper over to make sure it lays flat as you stitch. Otherwise, it's going to want to pull out of proportion here. You don't want that. Pull the zipper up and lay it flat like this as you stitch. Okay? So at this moment, this is what we have. Our zipper is kind of pulling it and it's all crazy. Okay? So you're going to take this upper section, put the bag so that you can see the lining part. This is the lining one piece. Fold your lining one upper piece down and kind of place it behind the zipper. Okay. We also want to find the center of our zipper. I should have told you that ahead of time. So let's go ahead and do that. If you hadn't done that already, when you found the center of your gusset, you should have found the center of your zipper. Sorry about that. Go ahead and do that right now. I'm just going to put a little bit of a clip in it. Okay. So now we're going to kind of fold this upper one section down behind our zipper. So now take one of your lining two pieces. We had already found the center of our bottom. Go ahead and find the center of the top. And you're going to right sides together. So what I mean by that is you're going to have your lining of your lining two piece against the lining of your lining one piece. We're going to sew this on the exact same side we just sewed. And what we're going to do is use our zipper as the gusset, and we're going to match that up first. Okay, so take this, put a couple clips. At the bottom, we're going to match the centers, put a few clips. Come all the way around. Let's go ahead and clip our sides. Okay, so now when you get to the curve, just like a regular gusset, you're going to have to make little clips in your zipper here so that your zipper extends to the curve and fits in. Don't make big clips here, okay, y'all? Just make smaller clips. And you'd rather do smaller ones first. You can always make them deeper afterwards, but you just want to make tiny little clips. So that this edge now matches up with the zipper. Now your exterior piece is curving around this curve. So right here I need to make my clips a little bit deeper. I'm going to make this fit right in. So this is what we have. So when you look in here, you're going to see your exterior and you're going to see your lining 2 piece. Your lining 1, your lining 2. That's how that's going to look. Okay, let's get our other edge in, our other curve here. So again, I'm going to clip little clips. And then just work this right in by pushing it down in there. Okay. So now we're going to baste this on. We're going to use the same seam allowances. You're going to, around the part where the gusset is, the actual fabric gusset, you're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Along the zipper part, you're going to use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and we're going to get it all stitched on. So I'm going to start over here using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Get around these curves first. I did find that either an awl or a pair of hemostats works pretty good here to kind of push this down and get around these curves. zip and pull out of the way. Now, next time around, we'll use a little bit of double-sided tape on here. I'll show you how that works. And it does help hold it a little bit. So I'm going to use these and just kind of pull this out. Whoops. Okay, so I'm getting to the point where I'm going to be stitching on my gusset, and I'm pretty much just going to try to stitch right over my old stitches. So I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. Now when you get to the corner, you're going to want to stop, turn your project, and then just fold this over to the other side, and then go ahead and keep stitching. Go ahead and stop in the corner, turn, just fold the gusset to the other side and keep stitching. So let's take a look at what we have now. So I'm not going to trim these seam allowances yet, so it's going to be a little bulky, but if you did turn the bag, essentially you would have the exterior with the gusset, okay, so here's your exterior. And then you'd have your lining 1 and your lining 2 pieces together. And then you're going to see the wrong side of your lining 2 piece and the wrong side, basically the lining part of your gusset. Okay, so that's where we are so far. So I'm just going to flip this back around. You don't have to flip yours. I just wanted to show you where we were. And on the same side you just sewed, first, take this upper piece, fold it down, and just kind of stick it here in the middle, okay? You're going to need to get that out of the way. Now you want to take one of your lining 3 pieces, and that's going to be the one without any vinyl at the top. I'm going to use my 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape, and I'm just going to put it around, start about here, come around the curve, and come around the other side. Basically, wherever the zipper is going to be. I'm going to curve this around, come down, and curve it around. And there's no, you don't have to measure where this is going. I mean, just kind of bring it down the side a little bit and then stop. Okay, so this is about where I have it. So you're going to, we want to sew right sides together for a little bit, and then we're going to turn it. So I've taken my upper lining 1, stuffed it inside, and just kind of stuffed the bag down. We're going to take the backing off the tape. And you're going to line up the center. So now you're looking at the right side of the bag. You're going to line up the center with the center zipper where you marked. Put some clips on here. Now, in these corners, you're going to have a lot of bulk right here. You're going to have to just try to work with it, try to open that up, and have it lay flat. This is kind of where the maybe thickness comes in. If you are sewing with a domestic machine, that's right there's kind of where you're going to want to watch out for. So you're going to clip this about to where the zipper ends. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to make sure that this is kind of laying flat here in the corner. And I'm going to stick this right on top of that curve. Now, as you sew this curve, this second time around, you may find that you don't get as close as you did the first time around. That's okay. Don't take it apart. You're going to go back and restitch it. And I'm probably going to have to do that myself, so we'll go over exactly how to do that. So we're going to stitch pretty much from where our zipper begins, just beyond where zipper begins or ends, across the top, all the way to the other side about where the zipper begins or ends. Okay? And this is another part where you're going to have to kind of manhandle your bag. Now, this is where we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because this is the final pass along our zipper. And I kind of feel the bulk right here, so I'm just going to reach in here and pull my exterior so that it lays flat and I can make sure my zipper is flat. Peek in here, make sure it all looks good. And then I can feel my zipper pull here, so you gotta watch out for that too. More here. Now, if you cannot pull your zipper pull out of the way, which I'm having a hard time, I cannot. I'm going to actually take the bag away. I'm going to move my zipper pull, and then I'm just going to start right back where I started. No harm in that, just a little back stitch. So as I approach this curve, I'm going to feel and make sure my bulk is all where it should be. So before I trim anything or turn the bag, I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to look at my stitch line and see if it is further in than my first stitch line. So let's see. Okay, so right here, and it's because of the exterior, you can see how the stitch line looks like it's on the wrong side. So from this side, it looks nice. Everything looks great. But from this side, you can see where right in here, it looks like I didn't get close enough. I'm not going to take it apart. I'm just going to restitch and get a little closer. And this time I'm going to restitch from the side where I can see that is off. I think the same thing had happened on this side. If you're not sure, just go ahead and flip it and see if you can see your stitches from before. And see, I can. So I'm going to have to restitch this side too. So this is normal. Don't worry if you have to restitch. It's all part of it. Move the zipper pull out of the way. Flip it over and stitch from this side. Check it out again. That looks much better. Let me check this side. Looks like I can still get a little bit closer on this side. So I'm going to stitch one more time. And then I think we'll be good to go. So once your corners are good, we are going to go ahead and trim this down. So I'm mostly worried just right around these corners. I want to make sure that I don't have too much bulk. So that's where I'm going to trim. The other thing I'm going to do is where my stitching stopped, so right there, I'm going to make a little cut to the stitching all the way through the bag. Do the same thing on this side. All right, so now go ahead and flip it. And we are going to top stitch. So I'm going to move my zipper, and we're basically going to top stitch from where the exterior comes into the bag. So right here, across the zipper to where the exterior comes here. Don't try to top stitch on top of the exterior here, okay? So you're just going right in between these two. Now, because of your presser foot, it's going to be hard to get to start right when you put your zipper in. It's going to be hard to start exactly right there. It's okay if you start in a little bit, just make sure you only go to that spot on the other side. We're just mostly wanting to make sure that our zipper lies flat on the inside. And if it's easier for you to unzip your zipper here, you can certainly do that too. So I'm gonna just kind of fold my interior in. I think I'm gonna keep my zipper closed. I did do a tiny little back stitch, and when I say tiny, I mean like one stitch, just enough to hold it in place. Okay, so now we're going to take the rest of this bag where we clipped, where we snipped here. We're just going to go ahead and pull those edges out. We're going to clip them together. And we're going to clip all the way around the rest of the bag. Make sure you get these edges out here where you clipped, snipped, I should say. We got too many clips going on, right? We got wonder clips and clippings and all kinds of stuff here. Okay, from the gusset side, we're going to go ahead and stitch, and this time we're going to stitch at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're going to start right here, basically where our snip was, and we're going to go all the way down, around, into the other snip on the other side. And by doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, we should now be encompassing all of our stitches, because they were all at a 1/4 inch before, or they should have been. So when you get to the corner here, turn the bag, fold your gusset over, and then continue on. Turn, fold this in the other direction, and we are on our last little bit. All right, so now you should see the right side of your bag with the gusset here, and if you turn it over, you should see your lining. We've got our zipper good to go. So now we want to go ahead and trim all these seam allowances because we're going to put our binding on. You want to trim them to about 1/4 inch and even them up. You especially want to make sure you trim these corners here. So this is why if you're sewing with a domestic machine, you probably want to keep your interfacing out of your seam allowances as well, because this is where it gets thick. Is this last step here when you're sewing it all together. Okay. So from here, I'm going to take some binding. And I'm going to leave about an inch. I don't want to put the binding right at the edge of where we're starting. Okay, we have a nice clean edge here to start. So I want to overlap that by about an inch. And I'm going to just encompass this seam with the binding. And I'm going to put a couple of clips probably down to this first corner here. Okay, so I have some left over, and we're going to start stitching, and we're going to stitch down. Now, I'm going to switch to black thread here because I'm using black binding, and if you use another color, it's going to show up. And I think that this is kind of the secret weapon when it comes to doing bindings, is to use black regardless of your lining color. So I'm going to switch my thread out, and then we'll go ahead and start sewing this binding on. Okay, I have black thread in both my bobbin and my top. I'm leaving some really nice long tails here, and you'll see why in a minute. And we're just going to go ahead and stitch this on. Now just go slow with the binding. There's no rush. And don't necessarily start right at the very edge. You want to start maybe about a ½ inch in. Do a little back stitch. And then as I get to the corner, I'm going to pull it just slightly because it is a bias binding. So what that means is that it's going to stretch some. So I'm going to pull it just a little bit and curve around this edge. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a clip here. And just kind of tuck these ends in. Do the same thing when I get to the end. I'm going to turn, flip my gusset. I'm going to use my awl to kind of stick that binding underneath there. I want to make sure it's on there good. And then I'm going to go ahead and just slightly pull on it and just put a couple more clips. Okay, so I'm coming to the edge. I'm just going to pull this around and clip it on this side. Stick the corners in and stitch to the edge. Turn, fold my gusset, stick that binding underneath there, and come up the side. When I see about how much I need, well, let's go ahead and stitch to the edge first. You can leave about 1/2 inch, just like on the other side. Let me see how I did here. I missed a little bit here. This is where I ended. And you see I didn't quite get the fold on the edge, and you can see some stitches right there. That's the only place I missed. So I'm just going to take that little bit apart right there. Okay. Just that little bit did the trick, I think. So go ahead and you see I have a little bit left over here. I'm going to leave about 1 inch, cut it off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this back. Fold the binding on itself. Okay, and then come up and just encompass this edge here. Now I cut off my tails. I didn't mean to do that, but I did. So we're just going to have to thread a needle. And yeah, we're going to have to do a little bit of hand stitching, I know. And basically what I want to do is I don't want these top threads right here to be showing. I don't want this little bit right here to peek out. So I'm going to sew this at the top here and just along this edge so that it does not peek out and it does not look bad. Because you're going to see it. When you open up the zipper, it's going to be right there. So, and I know when I say hand stitch, some of you are saying, no, but it's just a couple little stitches and it's going to make all the difference. It's going to make it look very professional. So I'm just going to take a little hand needle, take some thread, and just do a couple of stitches. Now if you want to try to sew to the edge here, you certainly can do that. You don't have to do this part. But I feel like it makes a big difference in the bag. So I'm going to, once I get to the top here, I'm going to come right across the top and stitch this together. Just do kind of like a little whip stitch to stitch this together. So it closes that binding right around that edge. Okay, and go back down in here. And just close up this other side, just attach it. Get my needle in here and I'll show you. So I'm just coming back through so that I can pull this and just do a little knot right here to attach it to this other side. I'm just going to hide my threads. This is not a very sharp needle. I think that's the problem here. Okay. And then we have that edge enclosed right there. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Just enclose that edge. So our binding is on. Everything looks great. We've got our edges stitched down. We've got our pocket. I mean, everything's looking great. Okay, so now we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So we've got our marks on our main fabric, our main part of our bag. We're going to put it right sides together. Clip and then sew it on using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You may have to pull your gusset and do whatever it takes to get it to lay flat here. Okay, we're going to snip our gusset. So we're snipping our gusset right here at our stitch line. We're going to turn the gusset. Now, as you do this, take this upper lining, fold it, and kind of stick it down in the bag from the other side, because it will want to get in the way. Do the other side. I'm going to go ahead and get my zipper pull out of the way. And if you're having a hard time with the zipper closed, unzip the zipper a little bit and see if it helps. Sometimes it will. So this is where we're going from a 1/4 inch seam allowance and transitioning to an 1/8. Go ahead and pull your zipper so that your bag is flat here where the zipper is. Okay, we're going to do the other side. And so you see here how I'm pulling the zipper flat? That's how you're going to have to do this to get this to stitch straight, because otherwise your zipper is going to be wanting to be pulled in the other direction and you're going to have a hard time. So just pull it, make it stay flat as you stitch this section here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and close the zipper. So I can stitch this part here. And then we're going to transition to that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Grab your zipper, or excuse me, your lining tube. Go ahead and clip the center. Let's put some double-sided tape on this time. Use my 1/8 of an inch and just go around this top part. Okay, so now you're going to be looking at your lining 1 piece. You're going to put your lining 2 piece on top of it. Take the top part, put it on the other side of the zipper. So basically unzip your zipper and pull it through. And now we're going to match the centers. Even though I have double-sided tape, I'm going to go ahead and put a few clips. Match the bottoms. Let's match the sides. And then we're going to go ahead and put clips in our gusset. Including a little bit of our zipper. And we're going to match this curve. So we're going to clip this side and do exactly the same thing. So unzip the zipper. Let's put clips in the gusset, which includes a little bit of the zipper. And the main thing you need to make sure is just you don't go too deep. And see how I'm having to take this is the main part of the bag, and I'm having to kind of push it out to get that to meet. Okay. You cannot be afraid to get a little rough with your bag here. All right. So we're going to sew, baste 1/8 of an inch for the zipper, 1/4 of an inch the rest of the way around, just like before. So we have that layer on. So I'm going to take my upper lining and I'm just going to fold it into itself, lay it inside. So now I have both of my upper linings kind of folded into themselves. Okay, y'all, I sewed my lining 3-piece, the pocket on upside down. So I went ahead and curved the top. And hopefully this will go on okay. Oh. So I could either redo this piece, but honestly I don't have any more of this fabric. I don't have any more of this color linen. So let's see if I can make this work. So all of those silly things that happen to all of us. I can promise you. All right, so let's take the backing off this tape and see if we can make this work. So I'm going to put right sides together. Right sides together. Okay, so you've got all of this completed, right? You're going to see the binding. You want to take the pocket piece and you're going to put it on top, like right sides together with your other completed lining 3-piece. So your 2 lining 3 pieces are together. This is where you're going to clip along your zipper. And this is the final pass on our zipper. So we're going to sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we've got a lot going on right here. We're going to sew to right about where the zipper ends. Okay? So I'm going to just move my zipper pull over, kind of smush the bag down, line up this curve, and clip. All right, so here we go. And you kind of have to sew from this side first and then go back and check your stitches, and then you can kind of cheat and sew from the other side. But to begin with, you really do need to sew from this side first. So this unstitched side, there's no stitches on this yet. All right. Pull, twist, do whatever you need to get this stitched on. I'm going to have to stitch again. Let's see here. Yep. side looks pretty good. Just need to stitch again on this side. Perfectly normal, perfectly okay. I've had to do it about every time I've done this bag, so it's okay. So this time I'm going to stitch from where I can see because I'm just going around this curve. Okay, let's trim these corner seam allowances down. Let's put our snip on the corner here on the side where our stitching ended. And let's turn it. So I'm going to pull this upper one lining out. Kind of finger press this in place. And then we're going to top stitch. I'm going to put a little bit of protection underneath here just because I feel like it might catch. There we go. Okay, we're in the home stretch. I'm going to go ahead and clip. And where I messed up, I'm going to have to really try to make sure I capture that. If I don't capture it with this, I'm going to have to definitely capture it with the binding. Okay, and now from the gusset side, we're going to stitch, and this time we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. My edges are going to work. Yes. Okay. go ahead and trim the seam allowance. So, if you make an error, just figure out what you can do to make it work. A lot of times you can. I've even punched holes in bags before that I shouldn't have. And so I put a rivet and it looked great. So, whatever it takes sometimes. I like punched a hole in the other side and it looked like a decorative element. So. All right, last but not least, we have our binding, and then we're done. Okay, so binding. I don't know if you've noticed, but I always sew from the gusset side. It's easier, I think, to do it that way. Whether you're putting the binding on or whatever. Okay. So let me pull this around. Go ahead and put a clip. Now we have flying awls. That's not a good thing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off this little bit of excess. I'm going to use a sharper needle this time. Let's go ahead and finish off these edges. And then y'all, we're done. Done, done, done. All right, go ahead and get the side down. I'm going to close this top. I'm just going to stitch this side down here. Tie a knot. Okay, binding is on both sides. Everything's looking good. Let's go ahead and turn it. So your corners should poke out nice on the sides. And as you can see, I'm definitely going to have to heat my iron up and heat my ironing board up and make sure I get some of the wrinkles out of this. Okay. So there we go. Nice gusset. We've got section 1 and 2 linings, section 3 linings, and then section 1 and 2 linings again. So all we have left to do is to put our handles on. So hopefully in between steps you have been edge coating, double checking your handles. We're going to go ahead and get those next, mark them, and then we're going to rivet them on the bag. And you should still see your marks on the upper lining 1. So go ahead and take a peek and make sure you can still see them on here, and I can. So I'm going to take them over to my punching station, and I'm going to use a just a hammer and a hand punch, and I'm going to go ahead and punch the holes in the bag where I have them marked on both upper lining pieces first. And then I'll get the handles, and we'll go ahead and talk about how we're going to mark those handles to go ahead and attach them onto the bag. Okay, on your handles. Well, first of all, I went ahead and punched my holes in the bag where I had them marked from the upper lining 1 piece. On your handles, we're going to measure 3/4 of an inch from the rounded tip. So not from where it's straight. Here, you want to measure 3/4 of an inch from this tip here. And make a mark in the center. That's where the first hole is going to be. And then you want to make a mark 3/4 of an inch up from there. And then another 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so I have my 3 marks. Now, before I actually punch these holes, I'm going to take my pattern piece and fold it and just kind of make sure it looks like it's about right. So here's the upper lining piece. I'm just going to fold it right there on these holes. And I'm going to line them up and just make sure it looks like they are correct. And it looks like they are good to go. So I'm going to take my hole punch and punch the holes. And then to make it easy on myself, I'm going to, first of all, make sure that they match up with the holes in the bag. It looks like we're good. Then what I'm going to do is just take this handle and lay it on top of the other one and mark the holes that way. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other two edges of the handles. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put some rivets in here, set the rivets, and we are done. And here she is, the completed Compton. Isn't she beautiful? I love her. I love the almost woman-like figure here on the side. I think that's great. I love the fact that she is slim, yet inside she's just so huge, right? Huge. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope that you're going to give her a try. Test your skills. If you do not have an industrial machine, remember, you probably want to stick to a cotton canvas. Leave the interfacing out of your seam allowances on your lining as well. But it's very doable. Maybe the first time, give her a run with some scrap fabrics that you have, but it won't take you long. After a few times, you're going to get her down. Make sure you post on the Simply Classic Facebook inspiration group. Give me a thumbs up so this video reaches other people. And until next time, happy sewing.